Oh, welcome to the Meacham Conversations. Today we have Jenny Sadre-Orafai. Is that how you pronounce
That's perfect.
it? Okay,
Perfect.
all right. Tell me that little story again about...
It just never gets pronounced correctly. When my dad came over, he hyphenated it. So a lot of times people will just say the first part or the last part. But all of his cousins have different spellings and everything, but it translates to the highest scholar in Farsi.
Terrific. Yeah. Well, we usually begin with having you read a poem.
Okay.
And then talk a little bit about it.
Okay. Dream work. 1. You see an armadillo on concrete, a crab too. Wrong for the landscape. You hold one in each palm and close your eyes. You wait for their bodies to stop clinking. You take them in your mouth and it isn't cruel because they are you. 2. Some man you love dies. It's unimportant which one. You take your crying to any room. You streak walls painted over hundreds of times. You take a bus 4 times in 4 directions, smudging a city into a rock, a pebble that gets stuck in a bowl. 3. You pack up a house you don't know. Its floors swept and windows open. You wrap every corner in moving paper. Boxes fill, and who can say what part of recovery this is really? You find a prayer in your cheeks and say it because you don't want to swallow it. 4. Someone shows you what you have never seen. Floating land in a campfire sky. You survey it outside of your body. This must be what's at the end of a map, a lit star that blinks when you're ready. You never knew how close you were, how the air could make your face so clear.
It's interesting that each of those sections almost acts like a metaphor for the other section. Even though, I mean, on the one hand, they go out in different directions, but on the other hand, they're sort of like, this mood is sort of like this mood is sort of like this mood, and so on.
Yeah.
But tell us about how it came about.
I've been getting into crystals lately, and so one of the stones I sleep with is called howlite, and it's really good for insomnia, but it also helps with dream work. So I've been having these very, I don't dream a lot, and I never remember my dreams. But for whatever reason, when I sleep with this stone, I was having these purely symbolic dreams, you know, and they were all metaphors. They were strictly metaphor. There was nothing connected to my reality at all. So the first dream I had, there was an armadillo and a crab, and they were just there. And then I woke up and I remembered that there was this, and you know, and I think about how they're armored and they don't like to be vulnerable, you know, and so that felt like, you know, where I was in that state, you know, and so each of them are just these, you know, they almost feel like visions, you know, not even dreams, because they're so vivid, you know. So.
How do you know when it's done?
I don't. I guess I just, when I wake up, you know, I'm not sure. Yeah.
And then when you're writing the poem, how do you know that's finished, that's complete?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I guess I kind of, after I've, you know, kind of meditated on this image and gotten to a point where it's like, this is what it means. I've come to the realization of what that dream or vision meant.
Feels like a discovery.
Right.
Act of discovery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you use dreams a lot for the poems?
No.
Recently?
No, it's just recently, yeah. With these crazy dreams I've been
How many poems have you done that way?
A couple, maybe 3 or 4. Yeah, but I've also been getting into other stuff like there's something called sound healing where people play crystal bowls, quartz crystal bowls on your body. So I had that done. So I had like a giant crystal bowl placed on my back, and then it was, you know, he hummed and made this noise and tuning forks and everything. So I ended up writing about that, and so just all these different ways of healing, and I've been writing a lot about lately.
Do you ever adapt any of those things to your classroom? I know you teach.
Yeah, no, I don't. But I should.
I wonder how you would do that.
Yeah. I don't know.
It'd be a little weird to bring in a glass bowl for everybody.
Yeah, that would be great though. You know, maybe start the workshop with a little crystal bowl, a singing bowl or something, and everybody just, Yeah, because that energy and that the vibration is really powerful.
Do you find your teaching and the writing have a lot of crossover?
I find that I don't take my own advice, but I think honestly that I'm teaching undergraduate poets, and so the things that they really need to understand, I feel like I understand, and sometimes I need to be reminded of it. But I talk to them about being curious, about always looking around them, about, you have to just be little sponges and look for an image. I think a lot of times when they first come in, they have this idea that poetry is pure emotion. It's just, I'm going to tell you how I feel,
sure, yeah.
And so I try actually to get them to not write about themselves, which is the opposite of, I think, what a lot of people teach, to like get outside of yourself. It takes more work to get outside of yourself and then figure out how you feel, by something else, like an image. Like, why does that image resonate with me? And then and it's more organic, and it's more of a pleasure for the reader and for the poet. It's discovery, and I think that's what poetry is. It's not preconceived. You don't sit down and you know what you're going to say, because I don't see the enjoyment in that.
What have been your influences?
I actually have been heavily influenced by a former professor of mine and mentor, Leon Stokesbury. When I was working on my MFA, he was kind of known as the taskmaster, and I took that as a challenge. I was kind of excited, and I've come to really appreciate him because I knew I would learn so much from him. I didn't really want to be coddled. And so it just turned out to, I worked on my thesis with him. And now as a teacher, I see the way he was and why he was the way he was. And it was primarily, I think, because poetry is sacred to him. And that's why he demands so much of his students. And I respect that a lot,
Yeah, what do you think is Leon's very much of a formalist, and I think a real terrific poet. What do you think is the role, I spent a lot of time in Eastern Europe, and over there the critique of American poetry is it's just about itself, and there are exceptions, like Charlie Simic, if he writes about a fork, it's not just a fork, it's a monster or something, and it relates to something that's social and political beyond that too. Not that he plans it out, it's always that what you were talking about, an act of discovery. But what do you think is the role of or is there a role of a poet in public life today?
Yeah, I think that this is coming up more and more, and that's really exciting to me. You look at Citizen, and you look at Morgan Parker and Dana Smith, and there are a lot of poets who are speaking out and trying to affect change, or just acting as witness. And I think that that's really, really important. I think what's really also just as important as being aware of when it's appropriate for you to speak out, and that you're not appropriating others' pain, that it's something that you have gone through. And I try and teach my students that a lot, because they want to write about things that they're not, that is not a part of their culture. And I guess that maybe I'm a purist, and I think that just kind of feels wrong to me. So I think that it's important that writers and poets are witnessing current events, and there to speak the truth, and there to for other people to find comfort. And during so many of the police shootings, I would see this outpouring of sharing of poems, from poets of color, and it was almost a blanket, I feel like, for a lot of us who are of color too, and there's something really gorgeous about that, But I also think we're seeing a lot of poets too, and writers who are being, what Roxane Gay calls a good literary citizen, and they're starting their journals, they're starting reading series, they're doing all this kinds of work to support literary communities and really help them flourish too.
Yeah, it's kind of a tricky thing, and what you were saying about, appropriating, I understand that. And there's this issue, like, you may not be involved, but if you see some horrible thing happening, like I was thinking like the shanty towns in Brazil,
Right.
for instance, and all the horrors that go on there. Sometimes this comes up as a question, if a student says, well, can I write about that? And I'm thinking, well, yeah, you can, but only your experience of it.
Right.
And it may be you've read something, you've imagined a situation, you've felt something for it. And so you have to, it's tricky. You can't write about it as if you were there.
That's right.
And solving something, but you can write about your experience of experiencing that.
Right.
Kind of a tricky situation.
It is.
Yeah.
It's really sticky, and I think that that's where other genres can come in too. That's where you can go to creative nonfiction. If you've witnessed this, and you can write a very powerful creative nonfiction essay about it. Then so yeah.
All right. Well, I think our time is about up. So
Okay.
great. It was
Thank you
good
for having
you.
me. Thank you.